Hey everybody, so I figured I should put an introduction video on my channel, and I thought that sounded like a pretty good opportunity to answer a couple questions that I hear come up a lot when people talk about history as a whole. So the first is, what is a historian? I think this one has a pretty easy answer. A historian is someone who studies history and condenses it into something that's easier to understand for the average person. So that's what I'm trying to do with this channel. That's kind of the heart of what I want the channel to be about, because I love learning new things, and I love sharing with people what I learn. Now, the second question's a little harder. Why do we study history? Now, the answer I hear most people give to this is so we can learn from the mistakes of our past, learn from our ancestors' mistakes, and try to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. And it's a really good sounding answer. That'll score you a 5 on an AP exam, but it's not quite an answer that rings true to me. First of all, when I pick up a history book, that's just not my motivation. I'm not sitting there thinking, okay, if I get through this whole thing, I can prevent World War III. I don't think that's quite how it works. And next up, I would argue that we aren't effectively using it to prevent the same mistakes. I'll use American history as an example. It seems lately, after what's been happening in 2016, 2017, everyone's just so surprised that we've become so polarized. But if you look at our country's history, it's really not surprising at all. The nation was born with this conflict between revolutionaries and loyalists, and then we have the Warhawks, nullification crisis, Bloody Kansas, Civil War, Reconstruction, the labor movement, Vietnam protests. Almost every decade there's been something. And once again, there's something, and people are gravitating to one extreme or another, and I don't think that's something people should be surprised about. So, I would argue, how can we effectively prevent the mistakes of the past if we can't even recognize simple patterns? Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. So now I've said what the answer to that question isn't, time to talk about what it is. If I'm being honest, this was a really hard one for me to come up with a good answer to. It's one I had to think about a lot, and I think I came up with a two-part answer for this. So, what are my motivations for studying history? One, because it's fun. I love reading, I love learning new things. I love little quirks, historical facts, I love knowing that during the Civil War, there were two ironclad battleships that just shot cannons at each other for hours until they figured out neither one could damage the other. I love stuff like that, so I would argue that intrinsic motivation is one reason. And the second part of my answer is self-improvement. I enjoy knowing a lot, being able to talk about a lot of topics. I feel like all I've learned about history has given me at least a little bit something to talk about in almost every topic. I feel like it's making me a better conversationalist, at least, a better person, a more well-read, well-rounded human being. So yeah, self-improvement and intrinsic motivation. I love doing this. I really hope you love watching this, so enjoy the channel.